7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Begin transmission.
Welcome to Boite Noire Radio.
Hello. What's going on? First and foremost, you guys know, thank you so much for tuning back in to our awesome podcast, Boite Noire Radio. This is a space where we talk about anything and everything, and I am your host, Alistair, co-hosted by
Beefy, your shit talking squirrel friend.
Squirrel Friend, and we have an awesome guest today. His name is Joe, Joe. Joe, can I just tell you something really quickly about your name? So I am originally from Africa, and it's one of the names where you know how like you have like Michael and Stephen, and one of the things when we were in school as young kids, we would make fun of the name Bob and the name Joe because it was typical of like a white person, right? And just to give you a perspective, there was only African kids, so white people were the minority, and so it was a funny, it was just a funny thing. It's like, hi Joe. So your name brings me back to a nostalgic moment of my childhood.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. But
can
it
call me-
was all fun, and it was all in fun and jest. But just introducing you just brought me back to little Alistair running around being mischievous. Yeah.
Nice. You can call me Joseph if you want. That's my
Oh, is
full
that your
name.
full name?
Yes. Yeah.
Why do you go by Joe then? Why not Joseph? Just curious.
Just easy and quick.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Maybe it's preference. Do you like
It's
Joe?
It's a big
better
thing
than
in
Joe?
America too that people will end up calling you by a nickname whether you ask them to or not. Like I used to go by Tim, and everybody just ended up calling me Timmy anyway, so it just kind of ended up falling into
Oh.
that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, people tried to shorten my name, and I said no. I'm Alistair. I'll teach you how to pronounce it, but I'm Alistair. Yeah. Anyway, so let's introduce the new people who are here. So we have
Whoa,
Alicia.
whoa. Hold on.
Yes?
Hold the F
What?
on.
What happened? What did I
If
do?
people don't have an open mind, what can they do, man?
That's right. Guys, it's important that you have an open mind when you come on this podcast, because most likely you'll be offended. And if you don't have an open mind, Beefy, what happens?
Just get the fuck out, man. Just
Exactly.
leave. Just go. Larigata dereki.
Do that again.
Larigata dereki.
Now, what is that?
That's Spanish for get the fuck out. I
Oh, is it?
memorized that just for today, too, just for
Oh.
you.
Oh, I didn't even know that was Spanish. I just thought you just made it up. Look at
Google
that.
Translate and all, baby. I'm doing research, all kinds of
Translate.
ways up in here. That's our mantra, Joe, is if you don't have an open mind, get out. Because we
I
have
like that. You got it.
existing fan base, and we kind of, as we say, we talk about anything and everything, and people tend to get
Yeah.
offended. So
Of course, and also for like life purposes, you can't be everything to everyone. So someone will be offended at something you say at some point in time, right? So you just have to keep open mind at all times.
Well, before we jump into our story today, too, we have
Mhm.
another announcement. Quick, a little bit of housekeeping to get to. And that is, we have our holiday sticker all ready to go. Links are in the description. Check this out.
Oh my god! Oh
Look
my
at that!
god! Oh my god! Hey Joe, who is this handsome chocolate man with
You
some?
said it doesn't look like him. I think it looks
That's
a
not
lot
you
like
holding Beefy? That's not how you
Yeah.
carry him
Wow.
around? Or...
him. Yeah, it does. Usually I ride around in Alistair's pocket.
That's right. It's kind of hard to get a squirrel wrong, right? right. No, I mean, it looks kind of like me. Yes, right. But Christopher was saying doesn't look like me at all. I said, okay, all
I
right, but
think
it's
maybe
okay.
the eyebrows are a little too thick, but I mean, I think that looks pretty close.
All
man.
right. I'll take it. He's a good-looking guy. I'll take that. Watch out, Tyra Banks. I'm coming.
But yeah, links are in the description for the low price of $5.99. You can get your holiday sticker, put it under the tree
Right.
for you and the all of your Boite Noirian fans out there. Yeah, we're gonna put one on the put it on the board.
You're gonna put the extra one on the board. Right. And we're gonna make this into a collectible. Listen, mark my words. One day we're gonna be super famous, and I'm going to put this in the Hall of Fame. You'll see. Right, Beefy?
Super rich too from this money making venture we have. So far, we've made like a grand total of $6 on this podcast. So we're hoping to bring it up to $7 this year.
Do you know how difficult it is? Listen, I think this is a great achievement. Absolutely. I say that to you all the time. The hardest thing to do is to generate $1. It's extremely hard. It's very hard
true.
to generate $1. So if you can make it 6. So congratulations.
Let's get some shout outs out of the way before we get into this crazy story that's going to take up a long time here. Lance Crockett says that Beefy still rules. Yes, he does. Alicia's in the house. Charlotte from France. Oh, your buddy Jared's here.
Oh, Jared.
John Bubba's getting nuts in the chat.
Oh, Bubba.
All right. Well, there you go. Welcome, everybody. We got an absolute insane tale to go through today. Like I said, we got a lot of information. From what I understand, Joe, you were live, boots on the ground, for this crazy festival that went on for 3 days in 1999. Before we dive into this whole tale, just general thoughts of your experiences. How did you end up at Woodstock 99? And, without getting extreme detail, what were your thoughts of the experience?
I actually had a decent experience, but the way that I got there is probably a better story. You have to remember this was back in 1999. Internet was still pretty new. I didn't even have a cell phone. One weekend I was at my local mall, and literally somebody just said to me, if you show up at this mall the next weekend or something like that at 8 a.m. and meet here outside, you have an opportunity to go to Woodstock 99. So I had no idea what it was about, but I showed up there, and some friends that I knew were also there, and a bunch of other random people. And there was a guy with a clipboard and some papers to fill out. He said, if you want to go to Woodstock 99 for free, fill this out. I'll be in touch. So we all filled out the thing.
Did you get paid?
I did get paid.
Wow.
Okay.
How much?
The grand total was a little bit over $400 that I made.
That's a lot back in the day.
How much did you spend while you were there, though?
I spent almost nothing because I didn't have to pay for food or anything like that. Transportation was free for me. Lodging was free for me.
So you probably had a better experience than most of the people who actually paid to go to Woodstock.
I would say so.
And you made money. $400.
So what did your accommodations look like?
We were in military barracks because it was on an Air Force base.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Why does that sound really gross? It was gross, wasn't it?
They were like little tiny houses, like a miniature neighborhood almost.
Alistair, do you know anything about this story? You're going completely blind?
I'm going in partially blind. The stuff that I know about it, it's from the simple Google search that I did before we showed up. So, but I don't have like the details, like the barracks.
That's good because we're going to go through everything today. But a big part of the story here is that the festival promoters who put on the show tried to sell, millennials of the 90s, this idea of the Woodstock experience. You know what I mean? They were telling everybody, come out to Rome, New York, and go out to the grassy hills just like they did in 1969, and peace, love, and music, man. And then when these kids show up, it's actually this big gated off Air Force base with nothing but concrete as far as the eye can see, 100-degree heat. They're taking everybody's, again, we're going to go through all these details, but it was absolutely despicable. And the common theme that everyone seems to talk about throughout was how greedy the promoters were, and they just went to cut corners every chance they could. And there are several stories of what Joe was talking about where security was a really big issue throughout the whole weekend, and they didn't actually hire any security. They just went exactly like Joe's talking about. They went to towns throughout New York and just said, hey, do you want to be a security guard for Woodstock? Sign this piece of paper, get on the bus, and let's go. And like 19-year-old kids who had no experience, no training, no weapons or anything, got a yellow t-shirt. They were called Peace Patrol, and boom, you're security. Just like Joe, did you have any cooking experience or anything going into this, or you're literally just...
No, but I will tell you this, and I don't know if you want to touch on it later, but one of the reasons why people were probably so ticked off with the experience. So I worked at a pizza vendor, and the pizzas were $12.
Oh, yeah.
And they were literally like the 99-cent pizzas that you can get at the food store, and they were.
And
terrible.
this is $12, 1999 money.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
it's probably
that's-
closer to like
Wow.
25, 30 probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not great at. Oh yeah. So
Wow.
Alicia's saying Firefest. So for anybody that doesn't know this story, but has seen the Fire Festival documentary on Netflix,
Yeah.
Woodstock '99 was like Fire Festival on steroids. Like
Yeah.
people literally died. All right.
Oh.
So we're burying the lead here.
Oh.
Let's go through this story here. We're gonna kind of get into some of the details, and
Yeah.
as we talked about beforehand, Joe, feel free to stop us along the way
Yeah.
and hit us with any anecdotes you might have as we go through the story. But
Yep.
Woodstock, as a concept, was originally created in an effort to spread peace and love during a time of strife in our country. And although the festival may have succeeded in that effort in the 1960s, by the time the 1990s rolled around, counterculture had taken a much darker and a much more violent turn, to such a point that by the time things reached critical mass of day 3 of Woodstock '99, the festival grounds would end up devolving into a state of basically martial law. Festival goers would be exposed to an array of horrors throughout these 3 days, seeing the likes of contaminated water supplies, overrun medical facilities, people rolling around in shit and piss, destruction of private property, theft, arson, sexual assault, and as I just mentioned, a few people even died. How we get to that point of critical mass, however, is through a very specific set of circumstances, the likes of which we shall discuss today on this episode of Boite Noire Radio, where we will talk about the riots of Woodstock '99. For those who may not be familiar, Woodstock was it was the first national big-time music festival similar to a Coachella or a Lollapalooza of today. The original Woodstock was held in August of 1969 and was very much had become the driving force behind the counterculture hippie movement of the 1970s. Labeled as, quote, 3 days of peace and music, Woodstock served as a public outcry against the ongoing war in Vietnam. So much so, the festival had become synonymous, not just with hippie culture, but 1960s pop culture of a whole. I mean, if you think or even talk to somebody about the 1960s, your mind goes to like 2 big things. What are they?
Elephant pants.
Joe, when you think of the 1960s, what do you think?
Fine.
I mean, I think about the Beatles and obviously Woodstock.
Yeah. I mean, Woodstock's always one of those two. Some people sometimes say the moon landing is pretty synonymous.
Well,
with
yeah,
1960s,
that's
but
something.
yeah, when you think of the environment of the 1960s, you think peace, groovy love, man, and that was very much created at Woodstock.
Yeah.
Most people cannot hear the word hippie or 1960s without thinking of an image of a doped up hippie at Woodstock, in tie-dye, throwing up the peace sign. The cliche was very much born out of the media portrayals of Woodstock. As I said, though, the important part I need to impress upon you was not only how popular the original Woodstock was, but the cultural significance the festival played in America in the 1960s and 70s. It was a phenomenon. Fewer things have been able to universally grip the heart and minds of America's youth like Woodstock did in the 1970s. And the festival promoters in the 1990s would very much capitalize on the history and the impression that had laid along youth of the 1990s trying to have their own Woodstock experience. And so with the overburdening pressure to hold a sequel bearing down upon creator Michael Lang, the idea to hold another Woodstock started to take shape around 1990. And so on the 25th anniversary of the original Woodstock, 2 more days of peace and music would grace Winston Farm in, I'm going to try to get this right, Saugerties, New York?
Okay.
Notable for the amount of rain that downpoured upon festival goers during basically the entirety of the event. People began dancing and playing in giant mud puddles. The mud became so synonymous with Woodstock 1994, they began to refer to the event as Mudstock, even going as far as when Primus performed the song My Name is Mud, attendees began pelting the stage with giant mud balls and at the band. Another notable portion of Woodstock 94 was the theft the festival endured because there was no real fence or gate surrounding the premises. And in fact, the fence they had actually fell. Oh, shucks. Rhonda said she was at 94. Yeah, tell us what your experience like. I'm assuming it was very muddy.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I'm looking at the picture right there, and you know, not to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm like, oh, it's just messy. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, up until 94, mud really wasn't synonymous with Woodstock, but you very much think about music festivals and rolling around in mud because of Woodstock 94.
Mm.
The initially anticipated 100. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just so I was I think I was 13 when Woodstock 94 came about. So I was a little too young to go. But, you know, being a teenager, the music that came out at that time, you know, kind of shaped my life, like Green Day, Nine Inch Nails, stuff like that. So when I see these pictures of the mud, and when I think about Woodstock, and when I think about bands like that, definitely Woodstock 94, I would say way more iconic than Woodstock
Yeah,
99. And just another thing I wanted to chime in at, because I'm looking at the chat here. You know, I would say Woodstock 99 definitely more organized than Firefest, but yeah, the promoters definitely were just interested in money. And
Mhm.
when it comes to the lack of security and having it compared to martial law, I would say Woodstock 99 was basically like a lawless town.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because there was not a lot of security compared to how many people were there. So
I mean,
people,
there's basically no infrastructure. They more or less just, you know, sold hundreds of thousands of tickets, put up a stage, and, you know, there was a little bit of infrastructure in place there, but not much. It was more or less like, you guys are trapped here and, you know, fuck off. Like,
yeah,
Right.
there was 3 stages. There was the row of vendors, and then there was the tent town area basically. And that's the people that paid to get in that were there for those 3 days. That's where they had to sleep. They just slept on the ground in
Wow.
tents.
we're
Mm.
gonna get through the details too, but an important. Okay, so referring to Fire Festival first, there's two big differences between Woodstock and Fire Festival. The main one being Woodstock actually happened. Like Fire
Yeah.
Festival wasn't a shit show because social media was in place and they were able to stop it before, you know, probably what happened at Woodstock would have
Wow.
happened to Fire Festival. You know, people got hip to what was going on down there and they just nixed it, you know. But there was almost a riot even there. So, you know, Woodstock's got one over on Fire Festival for the fact that a festival actually occurred. Like, there was a festival to kind of ridicule. But again, like, the amount of chaos that occurred at Woodstock 99 it's way more extreme than what happened at Fire Festival.
Oh, sure.
It's almost like it was a social experiment.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's like if you remove everything, right? Like that time can be studied, right? Like social scientists can study Woodstock.
Oh, so John Bubba says a No Man's Land or Lord of the Flies.
Yeah,
Actually,
there you go.
I
It's like
think
a
I
social
directly
experiment.
referenced Lord of the Flies a couple of times in this presentation. And yeah, by the end, it absolutely would be, and that was very much synonymous with what people were saying in the aftermath of Woodstock 99, was that it basically devolved to Lord of the Flies. But you know, we have a lot more details to get through here.
Let's do it.
But an important part of why we're talking about Woodstock 94 is Woodstock 94 lost money because so many people ended up just basically wandering in from the woods. So much so that festival goers were under the impression that the show was free. Concert promoters actually had to go out and tell the crowd this is a paid concert because people
Wow.
just thought it was like a, hey, look at this groovy, man. People are putting on a free show. The initially anticipated 164,000 ticket sales ended up turning into a crowd of some 350,000
Wow.
at peak performances such as that of Metallica or Aerosmith.
Freeloaders, that'll be
Yeah.
me in the crowd. Come on, man, let's sneak into it. Yeah, 100%.
And so when Michael Lang was approached with the idea for Woodstock 99, he tentatively agreed, but under certain conditions, most of which primarily addressed the financial end of the festival. As I said, Woodstock 94 ended up losing money. Like, that was really the only way they're going to do it, was if we make money. And he ended up partnering with a really big player in the music industry, John Cher. But when he got involved and very much got his fingers into the pie, so to speak, it started to become a money making venture first, and a message about peace and love, and becoming synonymous for the counterculture it was providing. It was a second play point to the money making venture.
Mm.
So this, at least to the belief of Michael Lang, was due to the some 150,000 people that snuck in. Again, they needed to find a way to prevent people from sneaking on the festival grounds. And their solution was to take the woodland and nature-bound setting of the previous two outings and, as Joe says, move it to an ex-military compound. So ridiculous to me. It's
My
like
God.
completely goes against what Woodstock was. Like, you picture Woodstock and you think like rolling hills and smoking doobies, and all of a sudden we're on a military. It's just it's
Nature,
it's completely
forest,
backwards.
breeze, flowers.
It was so it's Griffiths Air Force Base.
Yeah.
And there was some grassy areas, but there was also some areas that were just flat concrete.
Yeah, it's mostly concrete, right?
Yeah.
Now, quick question: didn't they need to get permission from the military to actually use the space?
No. So the Air Force Base was closed in 1995. In fact, people like the mayor, for example, of Rome, New York, were delighted to hear that they were doing something with this space, because it had become kind of an eyesore and a ding on the reputation of Rome.
I see.
During what I saw of all of the promotional material, like they're having media gatherings to talk about this Woodstock thing, they're all stoked that this is going to put Rome on the map, and people around the world are going to be talking about us, and this is going to become synonymous with our town by the end of the movie.
Collect the taxes.
They would not be invited back for Woodstock 2000. Let's put it that way. We'll get to that. So the one major part of why they were attracted to this Air Force Base as opposed to Woodstock 94 was there were certain pieces of infrastructure already in place, like bathrooms, buildings for one. They didn't have to build all this crap like they did for 1994. I mean, you got to think about it. They need to build like a firehouse, a medical facility, all kinds of sound stages for basically like 3 or 4 days. It's a really expensive endeavor to put on a music festival. So they figured they could supplement a lot of that overhead, having it on the Air Force Base. But again, like we're seeing already just the beginning stages when they're even scouting property, that this is going to be a money-making endeavor before they will ever consider the festival goers experience. Yeah, safety and just comfortability, like just basic food, water, shelter that you need to survive somewhere for 3 days. And we're going to see the effects of that here shortly. But this would not deter festival promoters at all.
Of course.
Michael Lang, John Cher, and his team proudly described the location as, quote, defensible, as if he needs to defend against the festival, like that it's invading force he needs to defend against. Like, yes, Jesus, we're so far removed from 2 days of peace and music here at this point.
Yeah.
Boasting of some 10,000 person security team of inexperienced New York locals they lovingly called peacekeepers, they also surrounded the festival grounds in a 12-foot plywood and steel wall they ironically dubbed the Peace Wall. Did you see this thing, Joe?
I saw the wall. I didn't think too much of it, but yeah, there was a wall.
It was literally just staging in plywood that they put murals and painting on so they could call it a quote-unquote peace wall.
Yes. One more thing to call back what you mentioned earlier about the buildings already existing on site. So on the site, there was no actual like bathroom buildings. It was just porta
Yeah.
potties.
I see.
Yeah, we're gonna talk
There's no
about
running
the
water,
porta potties and
right?
the showers. Yeah, we're gonna get there.
Can I ask you a
Oh, that's the
question, Joe?
question.
Did you sleep while you were there? Were you guys just for those times you were there? Did you actually get some sleep, or you were
We
just
we slept for a few hours at a
out of
time,
3 days? Oh, I
and
see.
luckily, because I did not have to sleep in the tent village, which was again just people sleeping on dirt in tents.
Oh, here I
I
have the
got to
map.
yeah, I
You
got
can
to
see
sleep.
that camping.
I got to sleep in the off-site military barracks, which was basically just like a tiny little house. I had a sleeping bag with me.
Well, hold
That I
on, hold
just
on. It was a tiny little house, but it was 10 levels far removed from what the people that actually paid to go to Woodstock
oh
would have
yeah
experienced.
yeah. It was an unfurnished house with only cold water, but I would take that over sleeping on the mud ground.
Was there heat? Was there like
Oh,
blanket?
they didn't need
We
heat
didn't
that
need heat
weekend.
because it was
It
like
got over 100 degrees.
yeah.
No, but I mean, like, was there some sort of comfort? Like, was there air conditioning? Was there a mattress?
I
Was
brought a
there
sleeping bag.
cockroaches?
I brought a sleeping bag and a pillow with me. I don't remember if there was air conditioning. I don't remember that part.
Okay. Wow. Were you scared? Last question. And
I wasn't scared, but towards the very end, when things started going crazy, the people that I was working for were trying to get us, the vendors, out of the location.
I see. Hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely want to pick your brain about what all happened when the actual riots get down, but we got a little bit of stuff to get through before we get there.
Yep.
So let's just keep plowing through here. Although the map used as promotional material may lead most to assume this location was similar to previous events, i.e., camping in the woods and the festival ground themselves mimicking a fairground. Again, the actual you can even see in the map here they painted everything green. So when you're buying your ticket, you're looking at this map like, oh, this is going to be great, and then you get there and it's actually this. Like
Yeah.
it's a very different experience. Like it's
Wow.
clear they are misleading ticket buyers.
Wow.
Not as bad as Fire Festival, but still
Same
pretty
essence.
bad.
Same essence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the map, it actually looks quite lovely. Look at that. There's a
Yeah.
PlayStation. There's a PlayStation area. And everything is so well compartmentalized. It's almost like an ant colony.
Yeah, seeing this online, I think, oh man, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
Grasslands everywhere, all this cool stuff going
All
on.
the
But the
peace
actual
sign.
grounds were
Yeah.
almost exclusively on top of Air Force Base tarmac, meaning the New York July heat that reached temperatures of over 100 degrees before noon were made even hotter due to the large areas of concrete and asphalt. You got to think
Concrete.
there's a hot sun beating
Yeah.
down on black concrete, and then there's a concert going on. Have you guys ever been to like a metal show?
Yes.
And you're in that crowd where it's all sweaty and you can't even get a breath because you're just breathing in everyone's like even in an air-conditioned building, you're like overheating, just breathing everyone else's carbon dioxide. I can only imagine what it must have been like to be in that crowd and over. I get the willies just thinking about it.
But you know what? All you need is a few shots of alcohol, and you kind of forget it temporarily.
Yeah, well, again, that tends to amplify things even more because they didn't really have access to water. So all these kids are in there getting all drunk, but they're there for 3 days. So they're getting no chance to really rest and recuperate and rehydrate. They're just drinking all of their dehydration away.
Yeah. That's really bad. On day one, those kids, you're kids, you don't know. You're like, oh, whatever. They'll pick me up tomorrow. And then day two, you go,
shucks. I'm missing some of the comments here. Oh, so Brad's Labs is here, our friend of the show. Hey, Maiden, she's another YouTuber. What's going on? John Bubba says, this place is defensible, sir. No hippies can take over our positions. We have chunks and Cheetos. Bubba always cracks me up. Stevia says, I was supposed to go there. So glad I didn't. Yeah, it sounds like
what happened? Why didn't you go? Did you miss the bus?
Yeah.
I'm just curious what happened.
Yeah.
I would have gone, by the way. Because 19, I would have gone and regretted every second of it, but I would have gone.
Yeah, definitely, at the very least, an experience.
Yeah. And I would be like, it's just concrete. Who cares? Take another shot. Oh, it's just heat. Yeah, I would have been that guy until the next day, like, oh, wow, it's really serious. Okay, I guess we're dying. Yeah, but
I
they
mean, I
want
think
like,
even just wandering on the basin, seeing all that concrete, I would have taken one look and been like, oh no. Well, the
mm,
problem was then compounded with little to no shade available, concert stages being almost 2 miles apart, and public water supplies being contaminated by overcapacity crowds. And this is going to be a big part of the story here. You see, the ticket cap of 250,000 people gave promoters a rough idea as to what to expect for turnout.
oh my
As we
god.
said earlier, as what?
No, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because in my head I'm connecting the dots. So you're saying the kids just show up and all they see is freaking concrete, and then you
Yeah.
look at the next picture and you like
It's
look what
this.
you can expect. So is this on concrete? I couldn't. I'm just laughing. The kid who's just showing up, time to party.
Taken
And it's
advantage
like,
of.
what's going
It's
on?
just like the name of the day. It's just they got there, they showed up, and oh, I have been misled. I'm in for a rough weekend. It's real. Is that kind of
Yeah,
what happened with you, Joe? Like you thought
yeah,
Woodstock was going to be one thing, and then you got there and realized it was not what you had been told?
No, but only because I was so young.
yeah.
Um, I was a senior in high school at age 17 leading up to it. So I just thought it was like whimsical. I was just excited to even be a part of it.
Love it.
And I
To be
turned eight.
fair, you and everyone else there, from when you watch footage of this thing, I mean, most of the kids, even though they look hot and sweaty and stuff, they're having a pretty effing good time,
Yeah,
despite the fact that, conditions were terrible.
definitely. Like day one, nobody would have expected anything. I would have done the same. Like take off my shirt. Oh, it's hot. Take off your shoes. It's getting out of shot. Let's
Yeah, naked
dance.
chicks everywhere. Too bad beers were probably so expensive. I mean, you got to think if they confiscated a lot of young kids, like you said, Joe, you're able to save up $400. You're probably in a better position than most of the people that went there. I think a lot of kids came to this thing, assuming they could pack lunches and stuff and water, and then that stuff got confiscated. Man.
Yeah, I made a profit going there, which
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people can say, but yeah.
Oh, so Stevia says her parents went to the original Woodstock and they found out and wouldn't let her go. Oh, that's a
Damn it.
bummer. If that's talk about do as I say, not as I do. Oh, we went to Woodstock and had a great time, but you're not allowed to. Well, they ended up doing you a favor.
Guilty.
Okay. So yeah, the initial ticket cap of 250,000 people gave promoters kind of a rough idea as to what to expect for turnout. As we said earlier, Woodstock 94 saw some 350,000 people. So they plan to accommodate for about 300,000 people given the extra security measures and the 10,000 people working the festival. But this would leave, like a 50,000 person buffer to ensure supplies would not run out. However, when the festival actually got underway, over 400,000 festival goers actually showed up. Speculation after the fact has called into question the not even 190,000 reported ticket sales, with researchers assuming that many more tickets were actually sold but not reported, with festival promoters pocketing the difference. This overabundance put what was already slim resources completely over capacity by even the beginning of day 2. This, coupled with the fact that all water and food was confiscated at the door, forced the burden of feeding and hydrating some 400,000 people onto the vendors, a sum 150,000 more than promoters had initially told them. In over 100-degree heat, surrounded by nothing but asphalt, and 400,000 other festival goers crammed together like sardines, all breathing their hot air on top of each other, you can imagine how awful this would be. Most performances started at around 11 a.m. and went until sometimes 6 in the morning. That means if you wanted to catch all the performances, you were standing in a massive pile of people with no way to shower and bottles of water costing up. I heard up to day 3, it got up to like $12 a pop for 18 hours. The Center for Disease Control recommends that, this is just kind of what it looked like. You can see everyone just like trying to get out of the heat somehow. But the Center for Disease Control recommends that when expelling moderate amounts of energy in high heat climate, you drink between 8 to 16 bottles of water throughout an 8-hour period. That means to drink the needed amount of water for the concert duration, you would be spending between $336 and $672 a day just in water.
Bring it on. Water is priceless. Take my 401k. Give me some water. Yeah.
But Beefy, I hear you say, didn't you just say there was public water available?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, to answer your question, yes, there was public water available. However, lines for the fountains got so long, many festival goers compared it to standing in line at Disney World. And given the overcapacity crowds, these water stations were neglected of service. People resorted to bathing, brushing their teeth, sometimes even sitting or putting their bodies in the fountains themselves. Not to mention the groundwater had been contaminated by the heavy metals and toxic chemicals such as trichloroethylene and
Oh my God.
PCBs from the site's time as
That's
military
so dangerous.
compound.
So
This-
people definitely die from the water. There's no way. Yep. Heavy metals
so
in your brain. Yep.
I don't have any reported deaths from the water, but people did die, yeah. This
Wow.
combined with the overcapacity crowd made the public water basically undrinkable. Public health officials took samples towards the end of the festival and found that almost all of the running water had been contaminated by human feces or some other form of organic bacteria. If you drank the public water over the 3-day weekend, you were almost guaranteed to be walking out with a sore throat, cold sores, and the runs due to a condition called trench mouth, an illness that hadn't been commonplace since the trench warfare era of World War I. Yeah. But that was merely the tip of the iceberg. We're going to take a little break here. John, did you drink any of this water?
Of course not. John was living in luxury. Like, oh, those peasants over there on the other side.
No, Joe did not drink any of that water because I actually had access to one of the backstage catering areas.
Yeah.
Joe's
so see, that's a good point here, right? So while this is going on, right, like the kids bathing in the public water fountains, and it's like, $12 for a pizza and $12 for a bottle of water. There's a VIP area for like the acts and the vendors, and like he's saying, it was catered. They had like a big cookout one day. There's these huge trailers for the bands that are all air conditioned. It's like literally you can throw a stone over the fence, and it's just like lower class, higher class, like the complete separation of classes. It's absolutely ridiculous.
See, back then at age 18, I did not realize that I was higher class in this society, but I guess I was.
Yeah, of course. Super impressionable. Yeah, of course. Boy, I'm just wow.
Yeah, this is a crazy story, like I said.
I'm surprised nobody went like I'm gonna call the police, like look at that.
But you gotta think it was a different age, and that's a big part of the story, right? Like this happened today, like I said earlier, people will be posting pictures on Instagram or whatever, and it's a big part of why these kids freaked out the way they did, because it was like nobody was listening to them. Like there's these media gatherings or whatever, and the festival promoters are up there going like, oh yeah, this is so great, best turnaround we've ever had, singing the praises of the festival, patting themselves on the back, like things couldn't have gone as good as we expected. Meanwhile, like the porta potties are unusable, there's no water, price gouging, it's just like the worst of all conditions, and there they are over across the fence in their air conditioning, chowing down on catered food, going, we did a great job.
Of water, darling.
Like, no, you fucking didn't. This sucks.
With ice water, yeah. This is one of the things where like it makes social media sort of a blessing in situations like this. It forces companies to be a little bit more upright, and it kind of makes you make sure you double check what you're doing, because somebody is going to complain and report. And you might go to jail. No.
Well, by the start of day 2, the entire festival grounds were covered in trash. Like we'll see some of these photos, but nobody was picking up anything. The porta potties were filled to the brim with human excrement. A standard attendee now had no place to get free drinking water, no place to get a clean shower, no place to relieve themselves, and nothing but miles and miles of hot tarmac in 100-degree weather with trash surrounding them as far as the eye could see. Festival goers had basically rounded up as many angsty preteens as they possibly could in a fenced pen, took their food and water, and charged them what was considered an insane premium on the promise of their own 1969 Woodstock experience. However, when they got there, as we said, they realized they would literally not even have a literal pot to piss in. Literally, the porta potties couldn't fit any more waste, so people resounded themselves to relieve themselves. It was dubbed the piss lake, and so when thirsty attendees broke the pipes in an effort to get clean drinking water, all of that water ran downhill through the piss lake and the overflowing porta potties that were literally overflowing with shit.
God.
So this photo reminds me. So they never ran out of toilet paper, but they were getting very close. So towards the end, like toilet paper was like gold, like a hot commodity where they would be like stealing it from certain porta potties and bringing it to other areas and stuff like that.
Let me
Yeah.
can I interject really quickly here, Joe? So was there no, like, if you kept walking to the edges of the base, there was no vegetation? There was no way, like, okay, maybe it's the size of a small little of a 10 block
From what I
town.
understand, people could go kind of in and out as they pleased. Like, that was
Okay, so
another part of the story, was that the local town wasn't prepared to supply these kids with everything, and so shelves were like cleaned out at the end of day one.
I see. Okay,
But that was the part that I wondered about, because you couldn't bring stuff in. So I guess they were like going and getting a bag of Reese's and a couple of waters, drinking them, and then going back to fucking hell on earth.
what kind of water are they showering right now in this picture? Is that the water with the piss and the feces?
Yeah, this is a broken pipe. Yep. Okay, so this is going to get a little gross. Trigger warnings here. But do you guys remember the pictures of Woodstock 94 where all the people were rolling around in the mud and dancing and all that?
Oh, God.
Well, these are the porta potties. Yeah, you know where this is going. In an effort to get their own Woodstock experience, hundreds of festival goers descended unto the sewage, likely unaware of what they were actually dancing and rolling around in. There are dozens of videos and pictures of people trying to capture their own Mudstock moment, posing with peace signs and poop-smeared smiles. They covered themselves in the mixture just for relief from the hot sun.
Listen, the scientist in me is like, oh my God, darling, let's get to the hospital now. Close your eyes. Don't spit. All I can think about is you have an infection, lady.
Can you imagine the smell? So this is a question I wanted to ask Joe. You were very much like in the atmosphere, and you kind of heard like the goings-ons or whatever. How common knowledge was it that what they were rolling around in was shit? Like, were people talking about it?
So, it was not as muddy as Woodstock 94, and people did know to be cautious of any wet grass or muddy grass. And I think some people just didn't care. Maybe they were under the influence of something.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just in the moment. But yeah, there was people who were aware, and there was people who didn't care.
I love how this girl's she's got the little peace signs, I don't know, but she's even got the cliche tongue in the teeth like you see on Instagram all the time. Like, she's covered in shit.
She is definitely ingesting poop. She has an infection. I would have been, okay, look, don't. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Doctor?
if anybody got trench mouth, this girl probably here. We're gonna.
I was just texting here, Christopher, to remind me a little bit, because we went to a festival when we were much older. I would say, like late 20s, and it was the Firefly Festival. And I remember there was a situation where they also ran out of running water, and there was nowhere to shower, and we were there for 3 days, and it was such a horrible experience. I never went again.
And that was just that you couldn't shower.
Yeah, you couldn't shower. Jeez.
Here, let's take a look at some of these images from the festival. You guys can get an idea of what this looked like.
Let's start a riot. Woodstock 99. The riots. I'm a college kid. I'm 20 years old. There's a lot of people that were younger than me. There's a lot of people that just like paid a lot of money to go to this festival.
Oh, that's their drinking water.
Little troughs where you're supposed to be able to have a drink, and there's people showering in them. So while you just wanted to like douse your face with water or brush your teeth or do something with water, there was just people like full on showering, shampoo, soap. And then at some point, I think somebody busted a pipe because they were so tired of waiting for the water. So then there's just like all this water just going all over the place.
Yeah, that's another point too. So on the start of day 2, like after everyone's all hungover from night 1, they all need water. It was off completely. So that's when they ended up busting the pipes, is because the water was just off. There was no, like, even the possibility to get some nasty trench mouth water wasn't available to them.
Place near the campgrounds and even flowing into the camp area, which led to the mud.
Look at how disgusting.
The porta potties, it didn't take long for them to become pretty much unusable. They were backing up pretty quickly, and then the sewage was seeping
Ugh,
out
some
to
sandals.
the point where you had kids within the first 24 hours
Ugh!
what they thought was mud, but was
No!
really human waste.
Oh my. Okay, he's jumping off the porta potty. He must know what he's doing.
That mud that these people were in, as far as I was concerned, based on what I saw, it was mud and shit. So I did see people covered in that. Thought that was pretty strange. Not a thing I would normally see where I come from.
We are going on a mission that nobody has ever gone on. Oh, you can smell. Holy shit! Oh,
Plumbing, always a challenge.
Oh yeah, so that was another thing I heard, is just the smell throughout the entire festival grounds. Could you smell it from Vendor Village?
Yeah, and also Vendor Village did not smell good either, because so the way that it was kind of set up, there was like a row of tents and tables. Behind it was the trucks backed up behind each tent because they had the supplies in them. But the grounds were getting wet.
I'm gonna take off, dude. We basically saw everything we need to see. Sorry, we don't need the picture of the shit right there when we hear this.
Yeah. You have terrible food at these vendors, so it's a combination of the horrible smell of the place, plus like the trash and the wetness behind the vendor tables, then just a mix of the smells of the
Oh my
weird,
God.
terrible foods that they were serving. Yeah, I do remember that. My pizza tent, it was just did not smell good at all.
So is that what you served, these little 99-cent microwave pizzas? Did you know the guy who was like owned the booth or whatever? Did he say anything about festival promoters or how he got set up in there?
I think he also worked at Woodstock 94. And he lived in the town over from me. I had not met him prior to this. But I got to know him a little bit as I was getting hired and when I was there, but no, I didn't know him.
Oh man, jeez, yeah, just not a good scene, that's for sure. I would have just bailed. Like I might have stayed for that Friday night, but there's some footage there of like everybody bailing on like midday Saturday or Sunday or whatever, and like hungover, thirsty, just hot as fuck. I would have been like, let's go get breakfast, dude. Let's get the fuck out of here. I don't care what I've been.
If they really wanted to, they could leave, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wasn't sure when I was in my rich. I was like, were they stuck there? No, they wasn't.
A lot of people did. By the end of day 3, it was like down to, I think, like 150,000 people because nobody just wanted to deal with it. Like there was a steady stream of cars all day. Day 2, so they paid for a 3-day experience, and they were so fed up from that first night, waking. I mean, like I said, by the end of the first night, waking up day 2. So they basically only had like 8 hours of concert. Like you get there Friday, you get set up, you go to the concert, then you go to sleep. So we're really like not even at the middle of the festival at this point. And the porta potties were already overrun. The water was already contaminated. There was trash everywhere. So like probably 75 to 80% of your festival experience, if you stayed for the whole 3 days, was the trash, the overflowed porta potties, the piss lake, just ugh. So yeah, that's the kind of harsh environment we in. It's hotter than Satan's asshole and nowhere to get out of the heat. People were laying under Mack trucks just to try to get some reprieve from the sun. The closest thing you were going to get to a break from the heat was showing out this $12 to $20 for a bottle of water that you probably would honestly just like drink in one gulp. Like, the videos of people that squeeze the bottle. Like, imagine how thirsty you'd be, like hung over in that hot sun. Like a 16-ounce bottle of water would be gone like that.
Yeah.
So that, coupled with the promoters trying to sell you this idea of peace and music and groovy, meanwhile they're more interested in the sale of that message than the message itself. It felt very disingenuous. You know,
Mhm.
Woodstock 69 may have been about peace and music, but Woodstock 99 was about money.
It's
Even
all
from the
about the
initial,
dollar.
yeah, even from the initial planning phases, the motive from the get-go wasn't let's put on a kick-ass rock and roll concert or try to build a cool experience for our fans. Like we said, even from just looking at location, it was we're only going to do it if we can make money. And you could very much feel that message in every facet of the festival, from the cheap accommodations to the overpriced concessions and merchandise to even the ironic branding of peace and love on the walls and security that were on a fucking Air Force base. Like it makes me angry. Whatever semblance of peace and love and music that was left from Woodstock 69 from this point was dead and gone. This was a for-profit enterprise. So you could feel the tension building. There was like a very primitive fuck the man energy just buzzing in the air. Not just at the festival, although it very much was the message of the day, but like even the 1990s as a whole, 90s counterculture was like all about attitude and being a thug and fight the power. You know, if the 1960s were about peace and love, the 1990s were about fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. So even if the intent, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, do you remember where you were in the 90s, Beefy?
Me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my life was WWF wrestling and Jinko jeans, and yeah, I was in middle school. It was this, you know, Korn and Limp Bizkit were like my favorite bands. Watching TRL, the backwards baseball hat. Yeah,
Okay.
I was this.
Oh, good. Joe, I know you were there. Do you remember what you were doing on that day at that time? Try to go back to your memory bank and look at the dusk or dawn and see if you were sleeping or something.
Well, I can tell you this about how the environment was there. Because the 90s were very split. Because the early 90s, you know, was all about grunge music and alternative music and stuff like that. Late 90s, when this was happening, definitely more bro type stuff. You know, new metal and rap rock had just started. Definitely more aggressive kind of than the earlier 90s. And those were the people that were at this show. Absolutely.
Yeah. It was very bro centric. Yeah. So you know, you were 18 in 99. Do you remember how effing big bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit were? Like,
I love them. I thought it was going to be like the next big thing. You know, I grew up listening to like alternative and like punk. But then because that was like a different style of music, I was like, oh wow, this might be the music of the future or something. You know, just because it was so different.
So yeah, again, going into Woodstock 99, even if the intention genuinely love peace and love, you look at who attended Woodstock 99 and the bands that played, like he's saying, and it was just not the same vibe. They had to have known, based on the bands they booked alone, this was not going to be Woodstock 69. It was Kid Rock, Offspring, Korn, Ice Cube, Rage Against the Machine. Like, the entire vibe is so different. The bands are the furthest thing you can get from peace and love. It is hate, fuck you, fight me, you know, Fight Club. Like, they even marketed it differently. The pay-per-view was almost exclusively sold as, come watch this to see tits and your favorite metal bands all in one place. I mean, like, here, okay. Look at the crowd, right? Those aren't hippies. Those are our white boys.
I only see boys. There were not that many girls. I don't see that many girls in there.
There were, and that's the problem. Is the ratio here is like 8 to 2, you know, 7 to 3 of men, and it's Woodstock, so they want to be free and let their tits hang out, and that will become a very dark tale of this story of a lot of groping and sexual assaults and being catcalled, and you know, we're going to get into some of that stuff here pretty shortly, but yeah, it wasn't an environment you felt very comfortable in being a girl, but it was also a different time in the 90s. You know, the Me Too movement, you know, female empowerment. It really wasn't as commonplace as it is today. So, you know, you're crowd surfing or whatever, and a guy grabs your tit, you're really
that was the norm.
it just kind of, you just went about your day. Unfortunately, as sad as that is to say, like it's a really sad commentary about where we were as a country back in that time, but unfortunately was just the norm. You know, skinny white teenagers with the Fred Durst hat and the baggy jeans, like that was the sea of these people that are just really pissed off. They can't get laid, and the music is feeding into that. Like it's telling them what you're feeling is right. You can be pissed.
Yeah.
So it's like this powder keg of not only feeling all these angsty, I can't get laid, but then also in this environment of I've been swindled and I'm hot and I'm thirsty and fuck you, you know. So that's why things exploded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So going through the event chronologically, there were signs this was not trending in a positive direction as early as morning of day 2, as actress Rosie Perez took the stage with Stephen Baldwin, and the crowd started chanting, "Show us your tits." Annoyed, she was heard screaming back at the crowd, "I ain't showing y'all shit." Shortly afterwards, DMX took the stage with confused and stunned media outlets all clipping the segment of the song "My N-Word," where a sea of young white boys all chanted along the N-word in unison along with DMX.
You know what's funny? You said a
so
sea
cringe.
of white boys. Yeah, I don't see any other black people there. Now you mentioned, you said a sea of white boys. Yeah.
And they're all going, "My N-word," right along with DMX with no, like a probably concerning amount of comfortability.
Well, DMX should have not played that song then. I'm just saying. Because everybody there is drunk and hot and angry.
You got to think as an artist too, this is Woodstock. Like it's iconic. You know what I mean? Like for them, it's an opportunity to cement this performance in with their catalog and become an even bigger artist. Like the artists that performed at Woodstock became Woodstock bands, like Jimi Hendrix and whatever. They got huge from Woodstock. So they knew that this was a really good career move. So they wanted to put on the best performance they possibly could.
Yeah.
The "Show Your Tits" chants continued once again as Sheryl Crow took the stage. She even reported that someone threw shit at her during a performance of "My Favorite Mistake." Crow famously refers to her set that night as the single worst gig I have ever had, and although she wanted to end the set early, continued on playing despite the crowd's unruly behavior. Admittedly, this was likely more of an issue of booking, as taking the stage after DMX but before Offspring and Korn, her performance was considered to be a considerable shift in energy compared to what the crowd was wanted and was getting.
Yeah. They're like, "Get out of here, lady. We want to hear more noise and screaming. We don't want to hear that peace stuff."
That's going to become a big part of this too, is just a really confusing set list of like, why is this person playing next to this? It just made zero sense. It was like the festival promoters that booked this thing didn't know who they were booking and what their music was like, and just kind of threw the names on there, you know, based on how big they were, rather than trying to put together a coherent show. And it led to some really dangerous environments and just some really negative moods for what was really like Korn was the biggest act of night 1, and the Bush ended up ending the night right after them. So we'll see a clip here in a second, but there's this massive unleashing of energy for Korn. That's this really angry mosh pit, whatever, and then all of a sudden Bush takes the stage, which is a very like alternative, kind of grungy, like whoa, 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 whoa. It's just they thought they were gonna riot there and then. Dexter Holland had to stop the show at one point after witnessing several occurrences of women being groped during their performance, shouting at the crowd, "Just because a girl wants to go crowd surfing, it doesn't give you guys the right to molest them." Know what I'm saying? The ruckus crowd responded by hurling a beer bottle at his head. Later in the set, Offspring set up a line of blow-up dummies with pictures of the Backstreet Boys taped to their faces, and the crowd exploded when he began beating the dummies with a baseball bat. This was considered to be what started the violence, as the ruckus crowd was almost looking for a reason to release all of the pent-up negative energy, as they immediately started throwing water balls on the stage at them, resulting in a small break before ICP came on stage next. In an effort to try and spread some goodwill and express their own frustrations at jacked up prices, they threw water balloons with $100 bills tied to them and threw them in the stage, and this would end up fights were breaking out all over the place. Joe, I can see you kind of looking around. I know you got to go, but before you leave here, did you see any of these acts? Like, what kind of commentary can you give us about the environment and some of the bands you might have seen? Like, what were the performances like?
So I can so luckily where I was working, I was allowed to leave whenever I wanted to watch whatever band I wanted to, as long as I wrote my time down. And yeah, it was a very diverse lineup of bands. And honestly, I think today that might be fine because genres are all kind of blending together. Back then, it was definitely not as blended together. But I saw Everlast, I saw Counting Crows. The last day there, I saw a bunch of the bands finish out the night. I saw Jewel, I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, Jewel.
I saw Metallica.
Oh, so you saw the fire thing with the Chili
I
Peppers.
was there for the whole breakdown of safety, basically. And I do have a little bit more time if you have specific questions that you want to ask me. Yeah.
We don't have much more. I'd really like to ask your questions. So if you can stick around for like another 15, 20 minutes, that would be great. Okay, cool. Okay. Korn would take the stage next, and this is where things would really begin to ratchet up. Have either of you guys seen Korn at all?
Yes.
So it's very, very high energy. The mosh pits are known for being like very rowdy. And, it's
a mess.
It's a really different tone as compared to like Cheryl Crow, who played just shortly before them, for example. Let's just I don't want to get demonetized, so I don't want to play too much of this, but let's just take a look at like a minute or so of what Korn's set look like, because well, I think the beginning of it actually isn't them playing, but yeah, we'll get like about a minute with the beginning or whatever. But Korn in particular, they're known for this being one of the not only their best sets ever. Like Jonathan Davis says, this was the best show he ever played. But people who went to Woodstock, it's almost universally point to this performance as being like stealing the show worthy. Like this was one of the big performances of the festival. So we'll take a look at this here. It is wild. I've seen Korn twice. I love these guys, but just wait until you see, man. It's nuts. Look at that. It's a sea of people. He does that too. I saw Korn in Lewiston, Maine, and we're all excited. Like we just can't wait for them to take the stage. And just like this, they play like that smooth little bass line as they all kind of slowly come out and take their instruments, and then finally, after like 5 minutes of that, Jonathan Davis comes out, and he's wearing like the pimped out Adidas suit, and he's just kind of walking back and forth, like all curled up, just like staring down the crowd. It was so, I'll never forget, like, what a fucking badass. He's almost just like trying to decide if he wants to play or not. Like, I don't know. I can't make up my mind about y'all. Like, he's looking y'all up, and oh, so fucking cool. Oh my god, look at that! What the fuck? Oh, I gotta admit, like, I want to be in that so bad.
yeah. Looking in from the outside, for sure.
That looks so fucking cool. The waves of people just, woo! Yeah! Oh, you ready? Oh my god, sorry. I'm a huge fanboy for this.
Whoa,
cool.
Beefy, did we strike a nerve there? I think we did.
Well, as you can see, the crowd just goes absolutely bananas for this whole corn set. Like they saw, it looks like something out of like a tribal documentary. Just piles of sweaty, naked people all, bouncing on each other. It was the height of the night. Like, these guys were gods. They were the biggest bands on the planet. And Jonathan Davis going on their ape shit was, I'm sorry, it's fucking awesome. He has said in the years that he thought he had heat stroke as a result of the heat mixed with his high energy performance. Medical personnel would actually need to hook him up to an IV and put bags of ice on him after he got off stage, and he'd be on oxygen. But I mean, we can't show the whole set, obviously, but he puts on a hell of a show. Like, at one point, he's just like laying down in the ground in a pool of sweat, just screaming. Oh, like, it's so sick.
Wow.
But yeah, as I said, in one of the worst booking decisions I've ever seen in my life, Bush was slated to go on last, with the common narrative initially being that the crowd may turn violent at the abrupt shift in energy, that being with, Bush's slower songs compared to Korn's. However, given the crowd had basically just erupted, the common belief was they had, blown their load, so to speak, and people just kind of trickled off and went to bed. A lot of them stayed up. Like, there was 24-hour music, but things started to kind of slowly hamper down. Yeah. So things would start off slow in the morning of the second day, although in anticipation of Limp Bizkit and Ice Cube, the prior acts of Tragically Hop and Alanis Morissette noted in getting less than stellar reactions, things began to escalate in the ultimate example of difference between classes when Kid Rock came out on stage in 100-degree weather wearing a giant fur coat.
Oh my God.
Tensions began to heighten even further when Kid Rock demanded the crowd throw their water bottles on stage in protest of the high concession prices. Things would reach an absolute boiling point when 90s nu metal band Limp Bizkit took the stage, and a palpable shift in energy would occur when lead singer Fred Durst, in the middle of their hit song Break Stuff, would instruct the crowd to, quote, reach deep down inside and take all that negative energy and let that shit out your fucking system. In the surrounding aftermath, people would point to this moment as the igniting of the powder keg, as people began tearing down the soundstage and tossing equipment into the crowd. People could even be seen crowd surfing on sheets of plywood. During an interview in 2020, Fred Durst would relive this moment and the role they may have played in the ensuing riot. While I get this queued up, did you see any of this, John? Did you see the Fred Durst performance or him playing Break Stuff?
I actually skipped Limp Bizkit because I had seen them maybe like 2 weeks or a month prior.
Oh, so you were like,
So, there was a few different stages, so I was kind of picking and choosing where I was going to go.
That's the cool part about these festivals is you can, like you said, just kind of pick and choose. Like, oh, I like this band, and then at 11:30, this band's playing at that other stage. Yep. Even though the stages are like 2 miles apart.
Yeah, it was a long walk. It was a very big area.
But yeah, like I said, Limp Bizkit and Fred Durst in particular, a lot of people point their fingers at them for inciting the riots. But we'll talk about that a little more. Let's hear what he has to say in the wake. This was recorded in 2020, like I said, so this is many years removed from what happened.
This is Woodstock 99, baby. Woo! We're in Rome, New York, not far from the original Woodstock site. But of course, things are a little different in 1999 than they were in 1969.
In July 1999, nearly 500,000 music fans descended on the small town of Rome in upstate New York to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Woodstock. Among the dozens of performers over the 3-day festival were Rage Against the Machine, Korn, and Limp Bizkit.
What are your memories of that show, and what do you think it did for this movement of heavy music?
Well, they were really pushing this movement hard. It was like this breakout metal festival with a few other artists sprinkled in. I remember getting there and just going, oh my God, look at this place. This is Woodstock. What an honor. How amazing. I mean, it was definitely the highlight of rap metal music.
For us too, it was crazy. I think it was the greatest show we ever played and are ever going to play. It was just amazing to play in front of 400,000 plus people and them all get it and be right there with us and feel what we were doing. It was amazing to see people jump into music, and because there's so many people seeing how the sound travels, seeing the waves of people jumping, it was just ridiculous.
Woodstock 99 was unforgettable. That was a pretty big moment. That was the biggest moment in our career because it was so intense. Never done anything like that before. Still haven't.
We rocked that place that first night, and everybody had fun. The second night, Limp Bizkit fucked it up for everybody. It really did.
You want the worst? Well, you got the worst. The one, the only, Limp Bizkit!
I mean, it was wildfire. There were people everywhere. And when we finally went up to play, it was like middle of the day. And we had like the best.
It's so weird to see him talking in like the dorky shirt and the haircut. And then when he goes on stage, like the face paint and all the get up, you know, it's funny to see these rock artists get old.
Slot to where the energy would be super high. So we just got up and we played our show.
We walked on stage, and it was that wave of people bouncing as far as you could see, hundreds of thousands of people. And it was the most amazing adrenaline pumping moment that I've ever experienced. And I was so amped and ready to rock. And we just did what we do. But I guess things started to go bad during, our song break stuff. It is what it is. It was just me doing my thing, because during our performance, I saw people surfing on plywood.
That's some tight shit right there. That crowd surfing on the plywood.
I was like, that's fucking amazing. How cool is that? I'm going to go do it. So I jump down off the stage and I go out in the crowd and I'm telling them to bring the plywood over here, and they're surfing it over, and I get up on it.
That looks so bad in hindsight that they like rip that off of a stage somewhere, and he's like, "Yeah, bring it over, man. I want to surf on that." God, it's not a good look for him.
And I'm just start rocking on the plywood. I'm partying with you guys. I want to be out here in the crowd with you. This is amazing. I had no idea there was anything negative going on at all.
You got job problems. You got a problem with me. You got a problem with yourself. It's time to take all that negative energy and put it the fuck out.
I don't think they understood that I meant, okay, let's get rid of all that negativity so we can bring positive in. That means start jumping, jumping and singing. It doesn't mean start raping and burning the place down. That's definitely not what I meant.
Look at that.
I remember getting off the stage and having some policemen with my manager come around me and say, "Fred, I think you kind of incited a riot." They started ripping down buildings and the scaffolding, and that's the plywood you were surfing on. That wasn't from walkways going to the restroom. They were tearing down things, and there's people getting hurt. And I go, I didn't see any of that. Everybody I saw was having an amazing time.
Fred with his
Oh man, it kind of reminds you of like Astro World, right? Like Travis Scott had no idea that people were dying in the crowd, right? Like he wasn't until he got off stage that he found out that people had died. Like I don't know. The festival promoters and the attendees they're all pointing their fingers at Limp Bizkit, but I don't think they incited the riot. Limp Bizkit, like you can't get mad at Limp Bizkit for coming on and putting on a hell of a show. That's what you hired them for. You know what I mean? Like, okay, they brought the energy up. Okay. That was what you fucking hired them to do. I think it's important to provide context too. The bulk of the riots and the looting and the setting fires and stuff, that doesn't happen until night 3. Like we'll get there shortly, but that's a whole some 28 hours after Limp Bizkit got off the stage. They were just doing their job. Like again, they were hired to just put on a kick-ass performance, and to their credit, they fucking delivered. Most people I've seen who talk about this show say Limp Bizkit stole the show. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Joe, were you saying?
No, you're good. But when you get there, to the Chili Peppers and the riots and stuff, I do want to talk about that, because I think people have a lot of misconceptions about how long it went on for and what was going on. So I'll definitely chime in when we get there.
Okay. So yeah, again, just everybody pointing their fingers at Limp Bizkit as inciting the riot. That's bullshit. You know, again, that was the conditions and the taking advantage of. That was what started the riot. It wasn't because of Limp Bizkit. All right. So you go back and look at some of the riot footage. You know, everyone is flipping off the cameras and burning stuff. They're all shouting greed stock or profit stock. I think festival promoters tried passing the buck off of the Limp Bizkit for quote unquote inciting a riot. But John Shear and Michael Lang, the two promoters who are basically in charge, again, they are to blame for this. Rage Against the Machine and Metallica, who had closed the main stage of night number 2, 24-year-old David DeRoja would collapse during Metallica's set, and he would be airlifted to University Hospital in Syracuse and treated for heat exhaustion and dehydration with an internal body temperature of 107 degrees Fahrenheit. He would ultimately slip into a coma, and the afternoon of the following day would be pronounced dead at 12:09 p.m. the following Monday, having never awoken from his collapse during his all-time favorite band's performance.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he cooked alive, pretty much.
Yeah, so we have death number 1, yeah. Sunday, July 25th, saw a much slower tone than the Saturday lineup.
Yo!
However, this would not do much to quell the rowdy audience, with the main stage seeing such performances as Willie Nelson, Everlast, Elvis Costello, Jewel, Creed, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, you can tell that it's very much a different vibe going on. It's not what it was day 2. Jewel recalled getting a feeling of dread during her performance due to the rising animosity coming from the crowd. She described them as being, quote, really tired and very depleted. It was not a happy atmosphere. And immediately following her set, her manager, and her crew tour would basically run onto the bus and speed away. This ultimately proved to be a very wise decision. Seven Dust had to be escorted to the stage. Numerous witnesses recalled fights breaking out during Godsmack's performance on the West stage. Promoters attempted to quell the violence by promising a, quote, secret surprise at the end of the night, with many people speculating a surprise act coming out after the headliners, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Rumors of appearances, Prince, Rolling Stones, even Michael Jackson were swirling all around the festival. Did you hear anything about this while you were there, Joe?
So for that day on Sunday, I pretty much was there I was there like up front, right near the stage for all of those bands that you just mentioned. And I can tell you that the surprise, the only surprise, was Robbie Krieger from The Doors coming out to play with Creed.
Yeah. So again, all weekend long, promoters are telling media appearances and people are speculating as to what this surprise is going to be. This would ultimately blow up in everyone's faces, as there would be no surprise guest, but rather small candles would be handed out by anti-gun violence organizers PACs for Red Hot Chili Peppers' encore song Under the Bridge in observance of the Columbine shootings. This apparently had not been sanctioned by the fire marshal and was only known by Michael Lang and John Shear what the quote-unquote big surprise would be. According to Lang, the original Woodstock had a message of stopping the war, and Woodstock 99 was meant to spread the message of ending gun violence. But ironically, if the crowd had had guns that night, I can assure you that message would not have been received well. It would have been like
yeah, seriously.
Goodness. As Chili Peppers were wrapping up Under a Bridge, a small fire could be seen at the back of the main stage grasslands. The Chili Peppers were forced to stop playing, and Michael Lang would run down to the on-site firehouse where they had hired a crew of firefighters for the festival. However, the firefighters refused to go out into the crowd given the amount of animosity. Now, you might think to yourself, like, what the fuck? That's messed up, you know? It's actually not, though. I train as a firefighter, and it's literally the first thing you do, you're trained to when you come onto a fire ground, is you say to yourself, quote, scene safe BSI. And it's basically verifying you're able to get onto the scene safely, and then BSI stands for body substance isolation. So in other words, you're wearing your protective gear. So, you know, based on everything I was taught as a firefighter, I wouldn't have gone in there either. Like, you can't really save anybody if your own life is in jeopardy. It's like rule number 1. So all these fires are going on. The fire crew is not coming. So with Red Hot Chili Peppers off the stage, City of Rome Mayor Joan Griffo would plead with lead singer Anthony Kiedis to return to the stage to attempt to quell the increasingly ruckus crowd and calm things down. Kiedis apparently told him, what can I do? I can't say anything to these people, but they basically forced them on stage anyways. The Chili Peppers would go back. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I don't know if you were about to say this, but it's just a memory that I have from being there. So yeah, there was a small fire, and when Chili Peppers came on to play, they played their cover of Jimi Hendrix's song "Fire."
Yeah, that's what we're about to get to. Yeah. So they go back out, and in response to the fire, Kiedis could record saying as soon as he walked out, "Holy shit, it's apocalypse now out there." And if you look at it literally looks like Vietnam. Like, look at this. Lee would turn to frontman Kiedis and ask, "What do you think? Should we?" And he's basically asking, like, they told us to come out here and quell everyone, but should we play? And play they would, as Joe just hinted. They played a cover by Jimi Hendrix called "Fire," and that's when all the other they're basically, pun intended, stoking the fire, like throwing wood on what was already a fire. Like they're pretty much giving people permission, and they gave them candles. Like they confiscated all of their lighters and whatever, and then you're gonna give them flammable materials. Like how fucking stupid do you have to be?
Wow.
Several fires erupt, growing bigger and bigger by the second until the crowds ultimately, like I said, evolved to what looked like a war zone or Vietnam. At this point, the show ends and the crowd is just buzzing with electricity. They are all brimming with excitement because everyone all weekend has been telling them that there's going to be this final surprise. So the entire crowd is assuming that somebody's coming out after Red Hot Chili Peppers. People were saying Bob Dylan, the Stones, like the biggest. Some people were even saying Guns N' Roses were going to come out of retirement after Red Hot Chili Peppers. So imagine then, after this weekend of hell, the fury that would overtake you when you find out that's it. Show's over. Go home. The candles were the surprise, you suckers. Gotcha. Fuck off. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah, if things weren't violent already, this was the last straw. It was the cherry on the sundae, so to speak. Thanks to the cash suckers. And, they rioted. I mean, what the fuck did they think that was going to happen? They trapped these poor kids in basically a prison for 3 days with no guards, no water, no food. They were like animals. It's mob mentality or herd mentality.
Yeah,
it's the inclination that some humans have to be part of a large group, often neglecting their individual feelings or standards in the process and adopting the behaviors of the people in the group instead. ATMs were flipped over as a result, tens of thousands of dollars being stolen. Trailers were broken into full of merchandise, food, and equipment, which would be burglarized by thousands of crowd members, now turned looters/rioters. A car driven onto the fairground would be flipped upside down and lit on fire. I know once they kind of had their way with the main stage, they made their way towards Vendor Village. What can you tell us about what it was like being there, and were you afraid, Joe?
So after the Chili Peppers wrapped up, I went back to the vendor tent. And yeah, there was definitely fires. I saw flipped over vehicles. That's totally true. But one thing that I wanted to say, because when everybody talks about Woodstock 99, they think that it was kind of like this the whole time. This was only for a short period of time after the Chili Peppers wrapped up that this was going on. And I know there was reports that riot police were there. That is true. So after Chili Peppers wrapped up, the local police came with their riot gear. I went back to the vendor area, and some of, I guess, our bosses or whatever were basically telling us to get the hell out of the area and to go back to our military barracks. And they were serious about it. They wanted.
I guess at this point it was good you're at a barracks because you could lock those big heavy doors.
Sure. Oh yeah, we were far away. We took shuttles back and forth.
Wow.
And I guess they didn't want it to be a liability on them for anybody working for them to get injured. So they were like, get the fuck out of here, go back to the place. And that's exactly what we did. So we went, backstage behind the area that we could go to, and took the shuttles.
So did you sorry to cut you off, but did you see Fire live, the performance of Fire?
Oh yeah, I saw the whole Chili Pepper performance. I saw the entire thing.
Yeah, because they don't make their way, from what I understand, they don't make their way down to Vendor Village where you guys would have been until after a couple hours. Because I'll show you, they flip over this huge radio tower. They're really kind of destroying everything they possibly can at the main stage for, like I said, a couple of hours. And after that everyone kind of makes their way towards Vendor Village and just start destroying that. Like people looted all of those. Did you go back the next day to see what you guys' concession stand looked like?
No, because so when we woke up the next morning at the barracks, there was school buses waiting for us. That's how we got transported to New York and back. A bunch of school buses. So they were already parked outside, and we just loaded back onto the buses.
Interesting.
Mm.
Wow. So you didn't really get to see any of the looting and the rioting, and then
yeah, I saw, like I said, I saw fires, I saw flipped over vehicles, but we were gone before the looting was going on.
You were smart to leave before the mess.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, again, the ATMs were flipped over, the trailers were broken into, this huge radio tower would be flipped over. Crowds then descended into Vendor Village. Oh yeah, this is funny. As they're making their way from the stage to Vendor Village, several waves of people could be heard chanting, "Rage Against the Machines, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me." Approximately 12 trailers, a small bus, and a number of concession stands and porta potties were all set on fire, some of which contained coolant or propane tanks and exploded. Frightened festival staff barricaded themselves in a control tower while rioters attempted to break down the door. The few vendors who had stayed to the end of the night fled the site in fear. Oh yeah, you can see right here, I even mentioned that. MTV, who was hired to cover the festival. Oh, this is the radio tower. Yeah, they're all climbing on like monkeys after they brought it down. MTV, who was hired to cover the festival exclusively, saw their employees, including Carson Daly, being pelted by bottles, rocks, batteries, basically whatever people could find. And this was actually going on all weekend. It was like MTV, they were like the harbingers of doom. Like they symbolized everything that was wrong with America, basically. Like they're bastardizing their music with like, you know, we're constantly talking about Backstreet Boys and all that, how they hate all of this commercialism and greed. And it's like for them, MTV, they were like the symbol of all of that. So they're constantly throwing rocks and batteries and stuff, just pelting them with whatever they can find.
It's like they really release their inner rage. Yeah, it's like they really let go.
Like we said, at this point, it's like Lord of the Flies. Like it's martial law. Do whatever you want. Fuck you. I won't do what you tell me. Longtime anchor Kurt Loder likened the experience of being a wartime journalist. And then although violence was rampant throughout the entire weekend, the end of night number 3 in particular was like being in a war zone. When interviewed for an expose regarding the festival in USA Today, Loder said, quote, "It was a dangerous place to be around. The whole scene was scary. There were just waves of hatred bouncing all around the place. It was clear we had to get out of there. It was like a concentration camp. To get in, you get frisked to make sure you're not bringing in any food or water that would prevent you from buying from their outrageously priced booths. You wallow around in garbage and human waste. There was a palpable mood of anger."
Wow.
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
I want to chime in on another thing, just to put things into perspective, because this was 1999. I don't think a single person had a cell phone there. And also, if you wanted to call the outside world, you had to wait in line at the few payphones that they had. So I never communicated with anybody in the outside world the whole time I was there. Basically, I left, and like I said, I had just turned 18, and I told my parents, like, all right, I'm going to be gone for 5 days. I'll catch you when I get back. And that was like it. That's how it was back then, you know?
What is
All right, let's just check out a few clips from, this is from MTV, the clips they pictured of the riots and stuff.
T-shirts. Probably like a $20 fucking value box of them. How much did you pay for them? Free. Nothing. Condoms everywhere. Here we go. Woodstock.
So this is where you were set up, right? Vendor Village, where all these T-shirts and stuff are.
I don't remember if the food was mixed with the merch. There was like a few different rows of like, or like not small, like long rows of like tents and tables and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh my God. It looks like an absolute war zone.
Look at that.
I can't tell you There are cars turned over
Oh,
right
God.
on the stage. These trucks are just burning, and it looks like military police are just patrolling the whole area. They just told us we have to leave.
We woke up one morning, there was no damn water for like half a day, man. I mean, everybody was bumming and it was hot as hell. And excuse my language, but there were like no water.
Yeah, you can see kind of a little bit of what we're dealing with here. The backwards
Yeah.
hat, the tight necklace. There was no water, bro. It
Yeah,
sucked.
the stereotype is very strong. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it was like they're trying to kill us in here, you know, and everybody was mad about that.
There was a lot of frustration about $10 burritos, you know, and $5 hot dogs, things like that. So that's what we were catching when people were coming
$10
by.
burritos?
Bottles at the vendors, and you know, give Woodstock.
Yeah, and again, that's 1999 money, which is probably, like we said, closer to probably $22 for a burrito nowadays.
Michael Lang, and so that kind of, you know, did it.
They can't have Limp Bizkit and then they come out and say, all right, the crowd's gonna calm down, and then they have Rage Against the Machine come out, all right, you guys gotta calm down, and then Metallica come out. You can't do that. There's too many crazy people around here on drugs.
One group of people just started going, and it just escalated into another group. They were down there beating on drums. It sounded like a freaking, like a jungle, like a tribe, jumping all over the place, lighting everything on fire. It was crazy. They ruined a good thing.
People were waking me up and saying, get up, you're gonna blow up. And I look over and see this damn thing on fire. I was just like, wow, man.
There was like 6 fires out there, and one
Look
fire
at
truck.
that.
You got 250,000 people out here. You should count on stuff like that, you know? Count on there being fires and stuff. Count for the worst, and they didn't do that.
One guy crowd surfing, he had a bottle of gin in his hand, and he fell down and he hit a girl in the head, and she cracked the head open. And it took about 30 minutes to get her out of the pit.
I'm so outraged that I was even in this. I came here to watch music. I didn't come here to fear for my life because a bunch of psychos started setting tractor trailers on fire and like the propane tanks.
Look at that.
That's ridiculous.
I got this tattoo about Thursday night around 12:30, and I got it here, something to remember it by, and now it should say Woodstock Riot 99.
Yeah, I don't want it on me anymore.
I don't see how they're ever going to throw anything like this ever again. It's just a lot of people ruined it. It just makes me sad, man.
Why would any of the hippies from '69 come here? You know, what? There's 5 hippies here. You know, it's like it's a new era.
Okay, yeah, we get it. All right, so yeah, that's kind of wrapping things up here. By 11:45, the chaos had attracted the attention of nearby law enforcement, and some 700 New York State troopers, local law enforcement, and members of the Army National Guard showed up in riot control gear, formed a riot line to flush the crowd northwest away from the main stage. Some accounts tell of strong resistance initially until mostly everyone dispersed back to the campground area where the riot line was held for the remainder of the night while people trickled out little by little. Apparently, fires were still not contained by sunrise, and the Air Force Base, as you just saw, ironically looked like a war zone. Look at that.
Wow.
Who's going to clean all that up?
Hey, while you're sharing these, can I show you something to contrast? And I don't know if hopefully you'll be able to see it. So I had a disposable camera with me at all times. So if you're interested in the future, I can email you some pics. But
You could sell those.
I have one
Hey.
picture of one of the main stages the day before the concert started. And if you can see it, there is only about 3 people standing in front of the stage.
Yeah.
The grass is
Yeah.
completely empty. Nobody, I know it's a little blurry because it's on the
No, no,
webcam.
it's not,
but
yeah.
No, we can see it.
Just blank grass, empty stage, people still setting up. So that's one of the pictures that I took there with my disposable
that's the after?
camera. What's that?
So yeah, we actually
Okay.
we have that in my script here that it actually it costed like $80,000 to resod the lawn where the main stage was built and the the surrounding area of where the crowd actually was by the stage or whatever. You know what I mean?
Really?
But yeah, the town had to pay $80,000 to resod all that.
Poor mayor. Did he get reelected?
No. And we're going to get into some of that. So yeah, 3 people would die that weekend. As we said, David DeRosa collapsed during Metallica and passed away. Scott L. Stanley died the first night of a heart attack. And Tara K. Weaver was struck and killed by a car speeding away, trying to escape authorities on an access road in an attempt to flee the concert. Reports suggest that 44 people were arrested during the chaos. 12 police officers were demoted or suspended for their behavior at the festival, noting several examples of officers posing with naked women and abusing their position of power. 253 people had to be treated at local hospitals, and 4,000 people were treated on-site in medical tents. However, Dr. Kazq, I guess I'm saying that right, claims the numbers were actually a lot higher than that, reaching as high as 10,000 people, given the large amounts of dehydration and heat exhaustion, some of which largely went unreported.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, trigger warning. We're going to get into some of the sexual assault stuff. So if some of that stuff stands to be sensitive for you, just... I feel like it's an important part of the story that needs to be told, and it's very much... Again, it's a disgusting commentary of what was going on here.
Sure.
I do feel like it's important that we I feel like they would want it to be told, the people that were assaulted here. So we're not going to name any names. This will take like 30 seconds. If you don't want to hear it, just mute or come back in 30 seconds. But we're just going to go through this really quickly. Police investigated 4 cases of sexual assault, including a woman who sued Oneida County and Michael Lang himself for personal injury as a result of sexual assault. However, many speculate the actual number to be in the triple digits. The Offspring, the Chili Peppers, and Fat Boy Slim all had to stop their performances due to witnessing occurrences of assault. Witness recounts a crowd-surfing woman being pulled down into the crowd and assaulted in a mosh pit. A volunteer also reported a gang rape occurring during Korn's performance, one of which could be heard yelling, "Rip her apart." Quote, "Rip her apart." That was what they were saying. Another account saw some 20 men having their way with a passed-out underage girl in a tent, entering and then leaving the tent one by one. Another account saw an intoxicated man drive a truck through the crowd in the rave tent, wherein staff reported a teenage girl being raped in the back seat. David Koenig, who was an A&T worker who was on shift for Woodstock 99, said the preponderance of sexual assaults and harassment at Woodstock was greater than any other event he has ever worked. He said, quote, "The one instance that stands out to me is one of the ambulances pulled up, and I was dispatching, and the driver got out, went around, and they were unloading one patient on a stretcher from the back. But there was another person up front, and it was a girl, probably 18, 19, he says, and she was just sitting there. And as the medic was wheeling the stretcher with the other 2 patients behind him, he turned to me and said, 'Watch the truck. Don't let anyone near her.' 5 minutes later, the woman was escorted away by a nurse. The nurse spoke to the girl, put a blanket over her, brought her inside, he says. And I said to him, 'So what's that all about?' And he says, 'It's just flat out, they're savages. They're just savages.' And he just walked away. A New York State prison guard who was charged with sodomizing a 15-year-old girl while the riots were occurring. This does not account for the some hundreds of, if not thousands of girls that were groped during the festival. It was a common occurrence for crowd-surfing women to be completely violated by the time they got to the stage. A website was set up by the name of fanseverywhere.org where you can report accounts of sexual assaults during Woodstock 99, which will be forwarded to the authorities in the aim of prosecution. All right, and we're done with the sexual assault stuff. I'm gonna put a comment down for anybody that was muted. When asked about the large number of sexual assault allegations, festival promoter and original Woodstock founder Michael Lang said, quote, "I'm critical of hundreds of women that were walking around with no clothes on, and expecting to not be touched. They shouldn't have been touched, but nevertheless, you're talking about, let's say it was 60-40 men or 70-30 men, average age of early 20s. Hell, what do they think was going to happen if they're walking around naked? Now that's somewhat so chauvinist and not politically correct. And I condemn it, but action, reaction. For every action in this world, it's an opposite and equal reaction. That's just the laws of science." That's a fucking...
Who is this?
Who's this guy, Michael Lang, who organized the festival. He's the one who started Woodstock 69. That was when asked about the sexual assaults.
Well, let me put it on the record. He's an idiot. His hair sucks. He probably smells bad, and he can go fuck himself.
Yeah, he's a fucking nasty, nasty dude. His partner, John Scher, in regards to the sexual assaults, said, "We had some 400,000 people. We're basically a small town. I would think that any town would have that many rapes over the course of 3 days." Yeah, well, fucking, ugh. So
Are
nasty.
they still alive? Those two idiots?
Michael Lang died in 2021, I believe, but I
Okay.
believe John Scherer is still out there and doing it. And actually, in a press conference held in the Monday after the event, Michael addresses heaps of criticism and more or less downplayed the riots, saying what he saw was a small group of kids who stole some stuff and lit some fires, which is like ridiculous. You can just look at the photos we saw. It's tens of thousands. It was like full on Lord of the Flies. If it was just a small group of kids, why did everyone barricade themselves out of fear and bring out the riot police? Like, he's obviously trying to downplay it.
Yeah.
John Scherer, Michael's partner, claimed it was a symptom of what society had become, that Woodstock 69 spread peace and love, and Woodstock 99 spread destruction and hate because of a youth that was angsty in fear of not wanting to grow up. He actually said that. Zero accountability, this guy. Just pointing fingers in any direction they can. This wasn't, a small group of kids. It was thousands of people that they had taken advantage of. Greed. This was because of greed. That was a massive lawsuits and civil lawsuits. There was tons of aftermath out of all of this. Look at that. Jesus. The post-festival cleanup took 3 weeks. Organizers spent an estimated $78,000. Yeah, like we talked about, attempting to resod the stage and mosh pit areas. After numerous lawsuits and fines resulting from the incidents occurring from the event, the city of Rome only profited $200,000 from the event. Following the event, San Francisco Examiner journalist Jane Ganal cast doubt on the ability to promote another high-profile Woodstock concert and described the event as, quote, the day the music died. The week after Woodstock 99, the organizers of Coachella announced the creation of their music festival, poking fun at Woodstock by telling everyone that water bottles would be free. They did a good job by all accounts. Coachella, from what I hear, is an awesome festival.
Yeah, they do a good job, but because there's a lot of legalese over their head, insurances are not playing with there. So Coachella is a bigger monster, so they have a lot of hidden rules behind the scene that they have to follow, or else. Which I think if you're gonna throw a festival of this size, I think governments or whatnot should not allow it or give permits unless you have insurance backing.
Yeah.
And because the insurance will dictate what the hell you do or do not. So that's what.
Yeah, there should be some form of checks and balances to, ensure that there isn't like a fire festival or an Astro World or a Woodstock 99 situation never happen again. You'd think that there would be some sort of government regulation to make sure that these things are safe. Who knows?
As a contrast to that, and maybe social media does play a role in it. Maybe legality of rules that they have to follow play a role in it. A few months ago, I was at Sound on Sound Fest in Connecticut, 2-day festival. Not as big as Woodstock, but still pretty big. Chili Peppers were one of the headliners. And,
nice. That must be trippy to see them in 99 for this, and then like 20 years later.
Yeah. But everything went off without a hitch. I did not see one person complain about anything. I did not see any violence. I didn't see any craziness. It was way more organized. So hopefully, because times have changed a little bit, that people can keep their shit together,
So I'm just curious, though, at the Sound at Sound, because you were at both events, are there any notable differences you could say, things they did right that Woodstock 99 could have done?
It was definitely cleaner. The food was expensive, but you have to remember it's years later, so there's going to be a price difference because of inflation.
Did they take your food away when you got there?
I didn't bring food, but I was allowed to bring like a folding chair. You could bring a bottle that you could refill with water. They did have water stations. They had plenty of porta potties, and they were very clean. They were like high-tech porta potties.
How was the water?
The water was fine. You could just go up to a water station and you press a button and basically you fill your bottle. But there was enough water stations, enough porta potties, enough vendors, enough food vendors, where you never really had a problem getting anything that you needed. And at this particular festival, you were allowed to leave and come back the next day. So I did not sleep. We didn't sleep there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you could get like a 1-day pass or a 2-day pass or whatever. Yeah, so we got like an Airbnb in the area. Made it much,
That's so
very
smart.
enjoyable.
So smart.
Yeah, but it was way like a million times more organized than Woodstock 90.
Well, I think the key here is what you just cited there. Is it's not what they put up for infrastructure, it's the fact that they just didn't plan for as many people as there were. Because it's not like there weren't porta potties or there wasn't water. There just wasn't enough for those things to last for 3 days or for 400,000 people. Like, even the price gouging and the expensive water is a symptom of supply and demand, right? Like, the vendors saw, if there were enough product to go around and enough vendors that it was be competitive, they're just going to drive those prices down. The reason bottles of water were $12 by the end of day 3 is because water was so valuable. Like, there was only so many water bottles there at the festival. They were going to get expensive by the end of it. So I think it's just, like they said, greed is really what was the downfall here. It was them cutting corners. If you watch the Netflix documentary, you hear about some of the people that worked pretty closely with the promoters. And you'll hear just little examples along the way of, we were supposed to do this, but we had choice between A and B, and they went with B, and B was obviously the cheap option. And it's just a continual thread. And we even saw it through the story here today of just a consistent, they're just choosing the cheap, easier options for everything. Like, they could have brought their own water pipelines in or whatever, you know what I mean? It was make everything as cheap as possible to get these kids money, throw them in there, and then we'll be done with it, and we'll make away like bandits. It was almost like a con, you know what I mean? Like a borderline criminal activity, and people sued. So it really was like, that's why we're covering it here today. We're first and foremost a true crime podcast, and this was criminal. People died, people were sexually assaulted, and lots of people sued them in the wake of all this damage and destruction. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Michael Lang tried to organize Woodstock 50 in 2019 at the Watkins Glen International Raceway, but to mark the 50th anniversary of the original Woodstock. But due to logistical issues and lack of capital funding, he was forced to cancel the festival on July 31, 2019, and he died, I believe, 2 years later. So there officially will never be another Woodstock.
Oh, look at that.
Thoughts, guys? Just general impressions about the whole thing.
So in my youth, I did raves, and I don't know if it's because in Europe it's different, but the experience of music festivals, from the Woodstock, even from the Firefly, it's way dirtier. Like there's no sense of, I don't know, cleanliness to me. Like we can have fun, we can twerk.
It's a European thing too, just to kind of like take care of each other. It's more of a sense of community.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a la carte over here. And not to say the raves were less fun, but it was fun. But at least bathrooms and.
So this is the interesting talking point. Lucy says, "I hate to say it, but young women put themselves in bad situations and poor decisions because they feel things are different from their mother's youth. A young woman told me just a couple years ago that a woman should be able to walk in a public with no clothes on and no one should touch. Nice fantasy on her part, but not the real world." I think there might be a grain of truth in what you're saying, but I think that's a bad take in comparison just to what we're talking about today. Like, girls should be able to go to a rock concert and crowd surf without being afraid of, being raped or groped. I think that's a pretty universally accepted opinion. Do I think them walking around with their tops off was a great idea? I'm not a woman, so I can't really, throw my opinion on that, but it was Woodstock. It was their one opportunity to be young, wild, and free. You know what I mean? They were just trying to have their own Woodstock 69. I don't think, as a symptom of that, them experiencing sexual assault, I don't think those two, like Michael Lang saying, I don't think action reaction is really the way to look at that. That's just my personal opinion, though.
I think what Lucy is trying to say is that she's not disagreeing with what you just said. I think she's acknowledging the fact that um, women should be able to walk around naked if they want to and do cartwheels and not be touched. But the reality of it is that's not the case, and I think that's the distinction that I understood from her both of her comments. And so to that I agree. I think people have full autonomy of their bodies. Don't touch me unless I tell you to touch me. I think
Yeah, I
consent.
think in today's climate, I think a girl could probably walk around naked. I don't think that it would be accepted. Like she would. There's obviously a moral issue there. People would be like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" But I don't think that she would be groped or sexually assaulted for walking down the street naked. I don't think that would happen.
Well, well, you know, sexual assault happens at any moment. You could be wearing a burqa and someone can sexually assault you for
Here we go.
no.
She's saying, "I am and I agree with you." John, I know no separation of violence these days. Not trying to be a jerk, but looking at it from a different. Oh wait, so Johnny says, well, at the same time, Lucy, a man should be able to walk home from work without getting beaten and robbed. Yeah, that's true.
I agree with it. I agree with it as well, John. But there's one thing, and I think we can all agree on that, and is that when we raise our girls, we tell them because of the reality of the world, right? Watch out how late you go, care for crowds, watch out how short the skirt is. But what I don't see or hear, especially being 38 years old, I don't see parents talking to their boys and you don't know what consent is, my little boy. I don't see that same.
No, I think people are doing that nowadays very much. It's all over the place. So Lucy says, what I'm trying to say is, I guess, is bad shit happens, but when you purposely put yourself in harm's ways to challenge it is stupid. Yeah, I think that there are two extremes, right? Like, there's the whole she was asking for it mantra, and then there's kind of what you're talking about of, well, she put herself in that situation. And I don't think either of those things are right. It's like we talk about in the show all the time. It's kind of the middle ground there, the gray area of knowing how to walk that tightrope in the balance of what's comfortable and what's accepted in society and what you're comfortable with as a person. But
This is
we're getting
so difficult because, for example, right? Like, what about the bystanders who were sitting there and watching the assault happen? Why couldn't they step up and do something about it, right?
Yeah, see,
So
Bubba's even saying, I know many parents that teach their boys what no means. Yeah, it's a lot of people are doing that. Yes, so even Charlotte's saying, I told this to my son, he was 3, yeah, and I would too if I was a parent. That would be like from a young age that we keep our hands to ourselves. Like she's saying,
sexual
no
assault,
means no.
sexual assault is so prevalent. 1 in 3 women.
Yeah.
1 in 3. 1 in 3. 1 in 3. 1
Well,
in
that's
3.
why we as not we
1
as parents. I'm not a
3.
parent, but that's that. Like if you have kids, you have an obligation.
1 in 3 means if there are 3 women in the room, 1 of them have been assaulted. 1 in 3. It's a crazy number, and that's the statistics of the numbers that we know. I'm just saying because imagine those numbers because there's numbers that we don't know. 1 in 3. Just keep that in mind. Whoever watches this, that's it.
Well, I don't think anybody's disagreeing with you. All right. So Joe, just final impressions here about the show as we wrap up.
So it's really interesting because when we got back, and again, we were isolated from the outside world for so long. When me and my friends got back, we definitely had a good time at the show. Yes, we were able to escape at the end and get out of harm's way, which is a different experience than a lot of people had. But when we got back and we talked to the people that were watching it on MTV or pay-per-view or whatever, those people were like, "Oh my God, was it like a crazy, insane, violent situation the whole time?" And the truth is, it wasn't. There was definitely parts that were, but I'm gonna say 90% of it. And I'm not talking about the heat or the high food and drink prices. I'm just talking about like the violence and the crazy shit. 90% of it was not that way. So I had a good time there. I definitely feel bad, at the end of the concert when shit was going crazy. So I feel bad for anybody that had a bad experience. but everybody that I know that was actually there did have fun.
Yeah.
That's kind of my take from it. So I can totally see both sides, but my personal experience, and that's all I can speak to, was not a bad one.
Yeah, I mean, you have $400 living in a barack, enjoying the a pillow, water,
If you had
mattress,
paid, if you
air
had
conditioning,
paid,
pizza.
Oh yeah, if I had paid, I definitely would have been pissed off because I went down to what we were calling like Tent Town or the Tent Village, which was kind of outside of the area where they were making everybody who paid sleep, and it was dirty and filthy and cramped and hot, and you know, we just went there to check it out, and then we were like, oh, this isn't good at all. You're paying all this money, you're sleeping on the dirt, basically. So yeah, I can
Rolling,
totally see both sides.
an important note too is it was a really expensive ticket for the time, and I say this and you might not think it's that expensive. It was between $150 to $225 for a ticket, depending on access levels. Which for a 3-day festival doesn't sound that pricey, but understand concerts weren't what they cost nowadays. Like for some reason, concerts in particular have gone way up. The average ticket price for a concert back in the 1990s was like $30. So to charge quintuple that, granted it is for 3 days and you're getting to camp there as well. Man, I don't know, just to get in, that's yeah.
Some tickets were even less. I saw Offspring before this in like 95 or something, and I think it was like $12.
Yeah.
So imagine Offspring now, how much the ticket would be. Like, I don't even know. $60 more? I have no idea.
Oh yeah,
What
more. I know
was the
Taylor
capacity?
Swift tickets go for like $1,000.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That like capacity, insurance, the polarity of the singer, so many factors come to play into it.
The last live event I went to was WWE. That was last year, I believe. And that was like, after fees and all that, it was like $100 a person for like balcony seats. So yeah, it's pricey. I don't know why that area in particular, probably because the music industry as a whole, they've had to rely on their touring to make revenue because you can just basically get their music for free. So it's how they make their money. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who hasn't parodied music before? I'm not parodied. Like, come on, please.
All right. Well, we are just about at the 2-hour mark here. Does anybody else have any final thoughts they want to? I mean, we'll get to our final thought, but does anything have anything they want to say, or did you have any last stories or tidbits you wanted to throw out there before we take this home here, Joe?
No, I think we touched on most of it. I mean, I just wanted to convey how different the times were back then. No communication with the outside world. Yeah, I think we touched on everything.
Yeah,
yeah, we did.
Alistair?
As a final thought,
no, we can do a final thought. All right, well, hold on.
The final thought.
I was laughing first at Booba's comment, $1,000 ticket, that's a used car. And I was like, yeah, Booba, you're right. That is a used car. And so it made me giggle.
That's another thing about the economy that's been really weird, because everyone talks about how like housing and food is so expensive. Cars have gotten like insanely cheap. I've been saving up for a car because I haven't had one, and I figured because I remember even just a few years ago, you couldn't get like an inspectable running car for anything less than like $1,500, $2,000. Nowadays, you can get like a decent stickered registered and vehicle for like $1,000. I have no idea why that fat industry in particular has gone down, but. Oh, friend of the show, Brad Slap says, great show. Thanks, man. I was really excited for this. I worked really hard in the script, and Joe, I just want to say thank you so much for coming, man. It was great to hear firsthand insight into what it was like being there, and just, you reached out to me on the Reddit when I posted for somebody to come on, and I can't thank you enough for reaching out to me and lending us your time. You even stayed for double what you said you were going to. So thank you.
Totally. And thank you so much for having me. And you did a great job. This is the first, I've not seen your show before, so I'm witnessing it as I'm participating in it. And great job telling the story, and great job with all the research that you did. I really like the format. So I'll spread the word. I'll spread the word.
Spread the word, Joe. You stay for 2 hours. You say I'm here for 1 hour, bitch. You're like, you stay
Oh
for
yeah.
2. Love it.
What's the name of your podcast? We'll put a plug. I know that your Instagram channel is in the link for anyone to check it out.
So
What's the...
if you go to wickedjawns.com, WICKEDJAWNS, wickedjawns.com, it'll bring you to our Instagram page, and that'll link to the podcast.
For anybody who doesn't know, it's so wicked is a slang term from Boston, and John is a slang term from Philadelphia. And from what I understand, between the three of you, one guy lives in Boston and a couple of you are in Philly. Is that kind of what's going on there? That's the dynamic.
Yep.
So that's where you get Wicked John from. That's cool. I like that.
Yep.
Well, if you ever have me, I'll invite myself onto your show. I'd love to come on sometime if you ever want it.
Yeah.
All right, Alistair, take us home. What do you got for a final thought, buddy?
Like first, look, just to go back really quickly on the sexual assault thing. Yeah, I lost my cool a little bit. It's just a topic
You did. You got a little upset.
It makes me very upset. It's irrational. It makes me irrationally upset. So I can't justify it, but it is what it is. So thanks for tolerating it. But in terms of the final thought, really,
I've never seen you like irritated like that. Usually, even when you get a little, and you kind of like play it off as laughing. But yeah, you were legit pissed. I could say.
I had to mute your sound when you were going through it. It just irritates me. It makes me a little bit irrational. I can't explain it. It is what it is. But really, as a final thought in relation to the Woodstock stuff, how many woodchuck and a woodchuck chuck for wood? Anyway, so mob mentality. Again, I came in with original final thought, but it changed as we went through the story. And one good way to combat mob mentality, you know what it is? I'll tell you what it is. It's to say no first, and then think about it, and then agree if you want to do it. Want to do that? No, not really. 2 seconds later, okay, sure, why not? It's so important. Start with no, and then think about it, and then sure. And that's the best advice. That's the best grown-up advice that I can give you. Really, I'm only 38, but I can teach you something.
No, it's really easy to do. I mean, that's like the old saying, right? If your friend jumps off a bridge, would you do it too? It's easy to fall into that.
Maybe
everybody else is doing it, so why shouldn't I do it too? And I think we all have a responsibility through all of our lives to, take personal stock and stop when appropriate and make sure that what we're doing lines up morally with what we're comfortable with and what is comfortable for the situation, regardless of what somebody else or even a crowd of people are doing. And I think it's a good note to end on here and send our people home with. So kudos to you.
Hey,
all
Joe. Right. Joe, can you lift up your shirt? You know what I mean? Come on, stand up a little bit. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah,
there you go.
Kind to everyone.
That's it, man. It's a simple thing.
Simple thing. Okay, Beefy, do you want to take us home?
Well, thanks so much, everybody, for coming today. Rhonda Harrigan said, great show, good memories. Brad, Lucy, thank you for chiming in so much. Alistair, Alicia, Charlotte, Bubba, we love you guys. Thanks for coming. And make sure that you buy yourselves a Christmas sticker. Link is in the description.
Yeah.
And with that, we will we'll see you next week, man. This was fun. Alistair, you got anything you want to say before we go?
The holidays are here. People's schedules are busy, right? And just have fun. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your times. Yeah.
Oh, all right. And we got we have Horrifying Histories coming on Tuesday. We're going to be talking about the Axemen in New Orleans. So hit your calendar Tuesday at 5:30. And we love you. We will see you next week.
Tuesday at 5:30. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, Joe. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.